Hello, I'm Jake Verma and I'm here with John Williams, who's going to tell us about electrification of heat. John, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Jake. So, hello, everyone. My name is John Williams. I'm a solution architect here at the Energy Systems Catapult, and I'm involved in the electrification of heat project as a technical lead.
Fantastic. So, John, tell us a little bit about the electrification of heat program and what its goals are.
Yeah, cool, no problem. As hopefully, well, people listening may or may not know, heating, particularly domestic heating, is a big challenge in terms of carbon emissions for this country. It's one of the biggest contributors to our overall contribution to climate change, and therefore it's really important that we, as a country, look to move away from current fossil fuel-based heating, be that gas boilers or oil or whatever. Now, there's a number of kind of technologies in play that will help us do that. One of which is heat pumps. This is something that is talked about quite a lot by a range of players in the industry, but government and the Committee on Climate Change mention it quite a bit. So the electrification of heat project is specifically looking at heat pump deployment. And trying to understand what if we look for a large-scale deployment across the country, what are the typical sort of issues that we might encounter? What are the barriers that we might see, and how would we overcome those barriers to achieve that large-scale rollout? So it's looking at both barriers in terms of technical issues, so technology suitability, suitability of homes, for example, but also looking at the experiences of people that and how they feel about the technology, what issues they perceive with it, and yeah, with a view to hopefully get a lot of learning that helps us drive it forward in the future.
Fantastic. So how are things going with the program at the moment?
Really well, actually. So we started in anger middle of last year with sort of actively going out to start to recruit participants. And by we, I should say it's not just the Catapult. There's a large number of different partners involved in this project. We had a lot of interest very early on in what was on offer, and a lot of people were very interested in signing up to go through the journey. And since then, we've done really well. We've spoken to a lot of people. We've surveyed a lot of homes, and as it stands today, we've got just over 400 heat pump installations completed in our target areas. The overall target is to try and get to 750, and we're on track to do that.
So you mentioned that the program isn't just about the technical factors around heat pumps, but also the customer journey and the acceptance. So what sort of data and information are you collecting to help you sort of examine those factors?
Yeah, okay. So quite a lot is the answer. Huge amounts of data. So yeah, rather than this isn't just a technology installation trial. We're not just trying to put kit in people's homes and see how well it works. So the idea is that we're recruiting members of the general public that have an interest, and then we're taking them through this, what might be a typical journey from that initial interest through to an installation. So along the way, therefore, we've got an initial phase where we're talking to the people, trying to understand their interests. What do they know about heat pump technology, for example? Why they, what drew them to taking part in the project. Once we get through that phase, once they've learned more, and if they wish to continue, we're then surveying their homes. So we're learning about the house. So we're capturing information about the property. So how old is it? How well insulated is it? How big is it? How many people live there? All of that sort of information. So all of that survey data we're collecting and collating. After that, we then go through a design phase where we're doing a whole house design for the property to make sure we identify the right type of heat pump system, or indeed if a heat pump system is even the right solution. So all of that design information we're capturing, and then finally for those homeowners, participants that wish to go to the final step of actually having an install, we're then capturing all of that information. So what did we install? How big was it? How much did it cost? How long did it take? And lots of other information around that.
Yeah.
But in addition to that sort of basic journey, we're capturing information about the participants' sort of attitudes and opinions along the way. So one of the key things that we're trying to find out is what makes people say no if you like. So throughout that journey, the participants can drop out at any point, and that has happened. And what's really important is that we capture why. What was it that, what was that barrier? What was the thing that meant that they didn't want to go ahead? So all of that kind of information we're capturing as well, and we think that's it's just as valuable to understand that as the people that do go all the way through to the end. The final thing, before I forget, is for every property that has an installation, we're also fitting monitoring equipment to that so that we can monitor the heat pump system, understand how much power it's using, how much heat it's generating, understand its performance, and so on.
And am I right in thinking that this is going to be the biggest heat pump data set in the UK by the time you finish?
Ooh, good advertising, Jake. Yes, we think so. Certainly in terms of heat pump numbers, in terms of installs, it's definitely the largest single trial that has been done in the UK. We think possibly the world, but I couldn't definitely confirm that. But we certainly believe in terms of the quantity of monitoring data we're gathering, and then all of the supplementary information that I've mentioned around the people and their homes. We think that the combined data set at the end will be certainly the largest the UK's got, and maybe beyond.
Excellent. So obviously within this data set, there's quite a lot of interesting data about people's attitudes, about the performance of the heat pump, how they use it. We've been through an open data triage process because the intention is for us to make this publicly available at some point. So talk me through some of the things that we had to factor in to make that data safe, to protect people's privacy, security, that sort of thing.
Yeah, as you say, we're recognizing this is a really big and potentially very valuable data set. We are working with BEIS to try and go through quite a rigorous process to make sure that that the data can be shared in a most useful fashion. And I think the open data triage process that we followed was really valuable in a number of ways. Firstly, I think it gave us a kind of a rigorous framework to work within. So a lot of the people involved in the project, and I count myself in this, we've all worked with data before, but the idea of sharing it in an open fashion is sort of new in a way. So we sort of almost didn't know where to start, if you like. So I think the open data triage process was really good because it gave us a really clear framework to work through, a set of checklists to go through, and that allowed everybody involved to get comfortable, I guess, with the idea, and that we weren't about to go do something daft. And as you say, because the data set contains a lot of information about people, about their homes, about through the monitoring, you could identify people's working patterns, for example. We're very conscious of the fact that we need to make sure that is done in a safe way, and that also we don't inadvertently create any commercial concerns. We have a number of heat pump manufacturers. Equipment being installed. We've got lots of surveyors and installers that are real companies doing real business, and we didn't want to create a situation where we inadvertently either prejudiced them in some way, or even perhaps gave a competitive advantage that we shouldn't look to do. So the open data triage sort of focused us to really think about what are the personal issues potentially, what are the security issues, what are the commercial issues and risks, and it really forced us to sort of go through line by line, item by item, and really consider those, and identify what could go wrong and how we mitigate it. And I think the other two really valuable things from the process were having some experts on board, so self and colleagues who helped guide us through that and give us some advice on the best way to deal with some of the risks. But equally, we had a range of parties. We had some folk from industry, some folk Catapult and other partners, and it really allowed us to get a lot of different perspectives involved. People spotted risks that others didn't think of, and so on.
And some people came forward and said, actually, we would quite like this information, and it's not quite as sensitive as perhaps we had considered in the first place.
That's something I actually found really surprising, but really useful. Is there were certain things that those of us in the project thought, actually, that might be an issue, that might be a concern, and some other parties said, actually, if that was out in the industry, that would be really valuable. Now, again, we've got to make sure we do it in an appropriate way, but getting the different perspectives is really important.
Yeah, and so why do you think the information is valuable, and who might use this data when it's made publicly available?
Well, as you keep reminding me, Jake, you put it out there because you can't think of all the ways it might be useful. But the reason we started is we thought, well, actually, there's a lot of questions in the industry at the moment around, for example, what proportion of houses are suitable for a heat pump? How well does the technology work? What are attitudes? So by putting that sort of information out there, we hope we can add to that, add to that data set, and hopefully provide insight to people making, perhaps looking to get into the industry or looking to develop new products or proposals, that kind of thing. So we can imagine uses for, if somebody's developing a new product, it might help them understand which kind of, types of people or types of property they should target, for example. It'll provide a lot of information we think about where the challenges are. Which particular properties are particularly difficult to treat, what sort of costs are involved. But I think also the monitoring data could be extremely useful. Off the top of my head, if I was a DNO, there's going to be 750 properties worth of effectively live data of heat pump use, so I could analyze that to understand what impact it might have on my network. If I was looking to develop a new tariff, I could plug my tariff through these 750 properties worth of data and understand what it would mean for people. So hopefully it's just really useful for a range of folk to develop things and test ideas.
Fantastic, and we'll look forward to seeing that in the future. And thank you for joining me today, John.
No worries, Jake. Pleasure.